What up, guys? This is Cheevo Guides back here again with another achievement guide. Today we're going to be focusing on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga collection. These games were published and developed by Konami, and the collection was put together by Digital Eclipse. It's actually released back in August of 2022, and at full price it's $39.99, and that's kind of why I waited so long to play it. I wanted to wait for a decent sale, so I bought it a few weeks ago, and similar to some other collections by Digital Eclipse, like let's say the Disney classic games Aladdin and Lion King, you can use the in-game watch mechanic to be able to get the achievements a lot easier. It's actually only going to take us about an hour to get the full 1000G or Platinum trophy in this game. The collection includes 13 different games, and we can actually use the watch method to complete 11 of the 13. However, there are 2 games that we're actually going to have to play to be able to get the full 1000G or Platinum. Luckily, those 2 are a fighting game called Tournament Fighters. This is going to require us to complete the story mode in the Sega version as well as the Super Nintendo version. But luckily, it's a fighting game and it doesn't take too long at all. It should take you about 20 minutes to complete each of them. And for the other 11 games in the collection, we're going to get all the achievements using the watch mechanic, and this shouldn't take you any longer than 20 minutes. All we got to do is start up the game in watch mode, fast forward it to the very end, we'll save it, we'll quit out, and we'll load it back up as a regular game, and we can finish the game and unlock the achievement for completing that game. All of the achievements and trophies in this game are related to completing each game in the collection. So yeah, you can get a super easy 800G in this game, but for the last 200G, we are going to have to play Tournament Fighters on the Sega and Super Nintendo. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. The first game we're going to play is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game. I do want to point out, if you press select, you can actually activate some in-game cheats like God mode and things like that. However, because we're using the watch mode method, you really don't need any of these cheats. I just want to point out they're there if you want to actually play the game, but maybe use some cheats at the same time. So once you're ready to start up a game, you want to press X to start it up in watch mode. At this point, you'll be able to fast forward to the very end of the game. You just want to pay attention and stop when you're fighting the final boss, specifically when the boss's health meter is low. Maybe resume it a couple hits before the boss dies. Once you resume the game, press start and save the game. After you save it, we're going to quit back to the main menu, and we're going to start up the game regular. After that, press start, go to load up the game, and this will let you play from that spot, but this time the achievements will not be disabled, because this time we didn't start up the game in watch mode. So all we gotta do is finish the end of the game. Once we finish it, we're gonna unlock our first achievement called Heroes in a Half Shell, worth 70 gamer score, for finishing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. And we basically gotta rinse and repeat this process for each of the games, except for Tournament Fighters, the Sega version, and Super Nintendo version. However, I do want to point out you can use the watch method in the NES version of Tournament Fighters. For now, we're going to move on to the next game, which is another arcade game, and that is Turtles in Time, the arcade. Similar to last time, we're going to press X to start up the game in watch mode, and then we're going to fast forward to the very end, a couple hits away from defeating the final boss. Once you get to a spot that you like, go ahead and resume the game. Press start, go to save. After you save your game, we're going to press start and quit out to the main menu, and this time start up the game pressing the A button. This will start it up in a regular mode rather than the watch mode. This is going to take you to the end of the boss battle, and all we need to do is finish the final boss battle, and you'll end up unlocking the next achievement called Callback, worth 70 gamer score, for completing Turtles in Time, the arcade game. The next game up is going to be Turtles in Time, however, this is the Super Nintendo version. Same thing here, we're going to start it up with X, or on PlayStation, Square. That's going to start it up in watch mode. We're going to fast forward to the very end, a couple hits before we defeat the boss. Once you resume it, press start and save your game. After you save your game, press start, go to quit game, and this time load up that same game, pressing A or X on PlayStation to start it up in a regular mode, not watch mode. After this, we can load up that save, so press start, go to load, and this should load you up at the very end of the game. All we need to do is hit the boss a few more times, and we'll end up unlocking our next achievement or trophy for completing TMNT 4 Turtles in Time, the Super Nintendo version. The next game up would be Tournament Fighters, however we're going to save that for the end, so we're going to skip to a Sega exclusive, which was the Hyperstone Heist. Similar to previous games, we're going to start it up in watch mode. Once it's in watch mode, we can fast forward to the very end. Once you get a few hits away from defeating the final boss, go ahead and resume the game. After that, press start and make your save. Once you've saved it, we can go ahead and quit out, and then we're going to jump back into this game the regular way by pressing A or X on PlayStation. Once you're back in Hyperstone Heist, press start and load up your save. This should take you to the very end of the game, in which we can hit the boss a few more times, finish the game, and unlock our achievement or trophy related to doing so. This time for completing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Hyperstone Heist. Now, continuing on to the right, we're actually going to skip Tournament Fighters once again, and we're going to go to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is for the original Nintendo NES. Start it up using watch mode and fast forward to the very end. Right about here, right before the lightning, the boss is going to drop down, and you can actually just keep using your projectile weapon. You should be able to catch the boss in a loop. The boss's life meter is at the bottom. You could also just keep playing until the boss meter is low. However, it skips 30 seconds at a time, so I found that was a little bit harder. Once the boss is defeated, you can go ahead and save your game. After you save it, we're going to quit out, go back into the game, and this time we're going to load up our save. And once you load it up and the boss is defeated, what actually triggers the achievement is jumping up here. Once you jump up, it's going to end the game, and it should trigger your achievement or trophy as long as you're not in watch mode anymore. And we should be unlocking the achievement called Shredding the Shredder for completing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the NES version. The next game to the right is going to be the sequel, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. I've always thought that's a bit confusing because it's not the arcade game. This is actually just the second NES game. Similar to last time, we're going to start the game in watch mode. We're going to fast forward to the very end, a few hits before we defeat the final boss. Once you get there, press start, go to save. After you save it, we can go ahead and quit out, go back into the game in the regular play mode. After it loads up, press start, go to load your game, and it should load us at the end of the game, a few hits before defeating the boss. All we gotta do is finish defeating the boss, and we should be unlocking our next achievement, this time for completing TMNT 2, the arcade game for NES. On to the next one. The next game to the right is going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the Manhattan Project. This was the third TMNT game on NES. Similar to last time, start it up in watch mode, fast forward to the end, a few hits before defeating the final boss. After that, press start, save your game. After you save it, go ahead and quit out. We're going to go back into the game using the regular play mode by pressing A or X on PlayStation. Once you're in, press start, go to load your game, and that should take you to the end of the game. Just hit the boss a few more times, and you should be unlocking your achievement or trophy related to completing TMNT 3, the Manhattan Project for NES. Now, the next game to the right is going to be the NES version of Tournament Fighters, but we're going to skip that for now. We're going to go to the first Game Boy game, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Fall of the Foot Clan. We're going to start it up in watch mode, and we're going to fast forward to the very last boss battle, a few hits away from defeating him. After that, press start, save your game. We're going to exit back out, start up the game in a regular play mode, and this time we're going to load up the save. It's going to take us to the very end. All we got to do is hit the boss a few more times, and after you defeat that final boss, we're going to unlock our next achievement or trophy related to completing the first Game Boy game, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan. Keep in mind this achievement's not going to pop until the end cutscene. After you unlock the achievement, we're going to go back to the game selection and we're going to go to the next game to the right, which was the sequel on Game Boy, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Back from the Sewers. Similar to last time, we're going to start it up in watch mode and fast forward to the very end. This boss does have a life meter, so you can see how close you are to defeating them. Just make sure the boss's life meter is low. Again, it's hard to get it right on time because it skips in 30-second increments, so I just resumed it and got him over to pretty much nearly no life, and then that's when I decided to save my game. Save it. After you save it, we're going to back out, go back into the game in the regular play mode, load up the save. That's going to take us to the very end, a few hits away from defeating the final boss. Same thing as last time, hit the boss a few times. We're going to end up beating the game nice and easy, triggering that easy achievement or trophy, this time for completing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Back from the Sewers on the Nintendo Game Boy. Again, this one's not going to trigger until the very end cutscene. This achievement is worth another 70 gamer score, and it's called Back to Action. After we complete that one, go back to the game selection, go to the right, and the next game is going to be the third game, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, Radical Rescue on the Nintendo Game Boy. Start it up using watch mode, fast forward to the very end. Similar to most of the other games, there is a boss battle, and this boss does have a life meter, so just make sure that you get the boss's life meter depleted nearly all of the way. Once it's low, press start, save your game. We're going to go back to the game selection, go back into the game, TMNT 3 for Game Boy, this time using the regular play mode. Once the game loads up, press start, load up your save. It's going to take us to the end of the game. This time, not only do we need to defeat the boss, but we need to go through this final door to end the game. Once you go through that door, it's going to trigger the end cutscene, and you should be unlocking your achievement or trophy related to completing Radical Rescue on Game Boy. Alright guys, there's our achievement called Gnarly Greatness, worth 70 gamer score, for finishing TMNT 3 Radical Rescue on Game Boy. At this point, we should have all of the achievements except for the 3 related to Tournament Fighters. Again, this collection has 3 different versions of Tournament Fighters. They have the NES version, the Super Nintendo version, and the Sega version. Now, we can use the watch method for one of these, and that is for the NES version. So, go through until you find Tournament Fighters and the graphics look like this. It's the version of Tournament Fighters that has the worst graphics. Once you find the NES version, go ahead and load it up using watch mode, and similar to the previous games, we can go ahead and fast forward to the very end, to the final boss, and just make it so that you're a few hits away from defeating that final boss. After that, press start, save your game. Once you save it, quit back to the game selection, go back into the game using the regular play mode. We're going to load up our save. That's going to take us a few hits away from beating the whole game. All you got to do is defeat Shredder. After you defeat Shredder, you'll end up completing TMNT Tournament Fighters for the NES, and your achievement or trophy should pop during the final cutscene. It is going to take a few seconds to pop, so just be patient. And that's the last game in the collection where we can get the achievement easy using the watch method, and that achievement's actually going to be worth 100G compared to all the previous ones were worth 70G. At this point, we only have 2 more games that we need to beat in this collection, and that's going to be Tournament Fighters for Super Nintendo and Tournament Fighters for Sega. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we are actually going to need to complete these legit. However, we do have some cheat modes and some methods that are going to make this much easier. We also have the rewind feature, which is definitely the most helpful feature, especially considering we're going to have to play one of these games on the hardest difficulty. Next, why don't we just dive into the Super Nintendo version. Now, the reason we can't use the watch mode for this is because the watch mode doesn't play the story battle. And this is important because the achievement specifies that you need to complete story battle. Before you start up the game, you can actually press select and activate a few cheats in your favor. For instance, you can turn on playable bosses, you can turn on maximum speed, you can turn on extra credits, and you can turn on ultimate attacks in story mode. Now again, in my experience, these enhancements do not disable the achievements. Now I want to point out, if you enable the increased game speed, the characters are going to go by a lot faster, but that'll also make it so your rounds go by much faster. After that, go ahead and start up the game using the regular play mode. You want to make sure the main menu looks just like this. This is the main menu of the Super Nintendo version. What we want to do is go to the settings. At top, we have the difficulty level. At default, it's set at 3. I have tested this, and if you change it anything lower than 3, it is not going to trigger any achievements or trophies. So just make sure you do not adjust the difficulty level. So make sure you do not adjust the game level. You can change the game time down to 30, and you can change the game speed to high speed. I changed it to high speed 3. You can also have the credits at 10. Go back to the main menu and make sure that you start up story battle. That is the most important part. After that, you'll be able to select one of 4 characters. I recommend selecting Leo. He has a lot of easy moves. I also want to point out that you can rewind using LB or L1 on PlayStation. So if you find that the computer gets a couple good combos on you, or you lose a lot of life quickly, you can rewind, undo that, and try to counter their attacks. I want to point this out because it just makes it much easier to complete the game. So again, all we got to do is complete this full mode right here. After you complete it, it should only take you about 20 minutes at most. After you complete the game legit, you'll end up unlocking your achievement or trophy at the end cutscene. And this one is going to be worth 100 gamer score for completing tournament fighters on the Super Nintendo. And at this point, we only have one achievement left, guys, and that is for completing tournament champions on Sega, which the game refers to as the Gen version, short for Genesis. Now this is definitely the hardest achievement in the game. This is because to face this boss at the end of the game, like the achievement specifies, we actually need to play the game on the hardest difficulty. Now before you start the game, press select, and you want to activate the one that says play as the bosses. This will allow us to play as the bosses in the game, which are the strongest characters. With that being said, I recommend playing as Karai. Now, once you get to the main menu, it should look like this. As long as you're sure you're playing the same version, go to the settings, and you want to change the difficulty to level 8. If you do not change it to the hardest difficulty, level 8, then Karai will not pop up as the boss at the end. And this is important because we need to face Karai to unlock the achievement. And the only way to do this is by playing the game on the hardest difficulty. So change the difficulty to level 8. We could change the rounds to 1, keep the timer on, and change your continues to 7. After that, go ahead and start up the game. Select one player. And I recommend selecting one of the bosses. They're hidden up here. As long as you enabled them in the enhancements, you should be able to select these 3 bosses. I recommend selecting Karai. After that, you can change their speed and power both up to 8. Once you do this, you're ready to go. I do want to foreshadow this game is going to be hard as we're playing on the hardest difficulty. Luckily, we have some different things at our advantage. For instance, we're able to play as Karai, one of the bosses, and we also have the rewind feature. So if you find that you're getting whooped by the CPU, make sure you rewind, get your health back, and try to counter attack. I also recommend saving your game every time you defeat a new character or opponent, just in case. Luckily, it's set to 1 round, so you only need to defeat each of these opponents 1 time. Again, the rewind mechanic is your best friend, so make sure you use it. Aside from that, just make your way through all of the characters in the mode. Eventually, you'll get to the final boss, which is going to be Karai. After you defeat her, you'll unlock your final achievement or trophy in the game called G Tournament Champion for defeating the real Karai in TMNT Tournament Fighters, the Sega Genesis version. And that's about it for this one, guys. If you guys tune in for the full video, I truly appreciate it. Make sure you guys stay tuned in with the channel for some more easy achievement guides. As always, I'd like to give a huge thank you to all of my Patreon subscribers. We just hit 15 patrons. I'd like to give a special shout out to everybody in the biggest fan club, including TimG84, Kegger101, Kana25, and Rockmono44. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, and don't forget to like and subscribe.